Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing the hearing this morning. Joining me from the Board of Revision on Zoom is Mr. Ethan Robson and Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our assessor this morning is Ms. Alyssa Adarhanova, and our administrative personnel are Fran Picotto and Twinkle Sharma. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicants may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. We will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 2 and 4 to 7 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Certainly. Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Alyssa Adarhanova.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Howard Lindsay McCubbin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll get started then. The first item on our docket this morning is 133 Horace Street, and I believe we're just dealing with assessed value, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So Ms. Adarhanova, please go ahead and read this onto the roll and do your presentation. Thank you.
File number is 24-4445. Roll number is 0609085500. The address is 133 Horace Street, and the owner is Enterprise St. Boniface Inc. Roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $299,000. Classification of the property is other property, and the liability is taxable. The property type is VRES 2. The zoning is C2, and the land area is 6,111 square feet. On page 2, we can see that there's the cost valuation summary, and there's a depreciated cost structure worth $3,000, and that the land value is $296,000. And on the lower half of page 2, we can see the land sale comparables. So the subject, and on page 3, we can see the net rate for the subject. So the subject is assessed at a rate of $48.44 per square foot. And the subject is located in the Norwood East neighborhood. Land area, again, 6,111 square feet, the zoning C2, and the land influence for the subject is commercial adjacent. For comparables, we have comparable 1, which is 41 St. Anne's Road in the Glenwood neighborhood. This is vacant commercial, as are all the comparables. The land area for this one is 4,834 square feet. The zoning is same as subject across the board. Land influence for this one would be bus route and heavy traffic, and it has a sale date of July 4th, 2019, and a sale price per square foot of $57.92. Comparable to is 481 St. Anne's Road in the 510 NCA Lavalley neighborhood. It has a land area of 4,539 square feet, and land influences here are bus route, commercial adjacent, heavy traffic. The sale date is December 11th, 2018, with a sale price per square foot of $61.69. Comparable 3 is 921 St. Mary's Road in the St. George neighborhood. It has a land area of 4,060 square feet. Land influences being bus route, commercial adjacent, heavy traffic, external corner, and school. It has a sale date of November 23rd, 2017, with the sale price per square foot being $60.34. Comparable 4 is 113 St. Anne's Road in the Glenwood neighborhood. It has a land area of 6,044 square feet, affected by a bus route, heavy traffic, and a sale date of May 23rd in 2014 for a sale price per square foot at $41.36. Comparable 5 is 304 St. Mary's Road in the Norwood West neighborhood. It has a land area of 6,824 square feet. It's affected by a bus route, bus stop, heavy traffic, and external corner. It has the most dated sale of October 16th, 2013 out of all the comparables, and a sale price per square foot being $30.63. So continuing to page 3, we can see again that the RCNLD has a value of $3,000 for the paving asphalt, and that the land valuation has a net rate per square foot of $48.44. And on page 4, we can see an aerial of the subject at the top and a Google Street View image of the subject below. And just pointing out, so where you can see Marion Street on the subject property for 130 Marion, which is above the subject property and to the left, that is owned by Enterprise St. Boniface Inc. as well. So it seems like the parking lot is serving that building. And we can see comparable 1 on page 4 going down to page 5, comparable 2, comparable 3. And then we can see comparables 4s and 5 on page 6. Pages 7 and 8 are the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And it seems that the subject property is similar shape as the comparables. That would conclude my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCubbin, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do. With respect to page 1 of your brief, Ms. Darkanova, if I can get you to look at the property type, is that correct?
It is how we have it at the moment. Going forward, it seems like it should be reevaluated as the zoning is C2.
Okay, so the property type should change then.
Seems that way.
All righty. And with respect to page 2 of your presentation, you mentioned $3,000 in depreciated cost. What is that specifically for?
So that would be for the paving asphalt feature that the subject has. And on page 3 of my brief, we can see in the subject property detached structure details, the breakdown for it in terms of the units, the unit cost, and then the reconstructed costs new with the percent for the depreciation, and then the reconstructed costs new less depreciation is the value of 3,000.
Okay, and you think that's specifically related to the asphalt paving, not the fencing and the electrified situation there?
The description is paving asphalt, so it seems that it solely kind of relates to the paving asphalt.
Okay, so the Assessment and Taxation Department does recognize this as being a parking lot. Then,
We do have the detached structure value for the parking lot, yes.
and what's the highest and best use of this property as it stands today?
In our opinion, it would be vacant land.
But what's the use of that vacant land? What would be the use of that vacant land, the highest and best use of that vacant land?
That is not something that I've looked into.
Okay. Alrighty. Moving along to. Okay, if I can turn your attention to page 4 of your presentation, please. The top photograph, you'd mentioned that the owners of the subject property is also own a property, a commercial building that fronts on Marion Street. Is that correct?
That's correct. They own 130 Marion as well.
And do you think that they are using some of this property for associated parking with respect to that building?
I would assume that the parking's used in conjunction with that building.
Thanks for that. Now, let's go to your. Sorry. Okay, let's go to page 2 of your presentation, please, where you have the comparables.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at the land influence of the subject property, it's commercial adjacent, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you look at the land comparisons, the land influence of all your comparisons, would you notice that there's quite a difference in terms of the influences with respect to this property?
The comparables, all in common aside from the subject, seem to have a bus route in common as well as a few other additional influences. I don't think that makes them less comparable in terms of land value than the subject, though.
You don't think that makes them less comparable in terms of land value?
No, I think
Is
they're
that your
usable
statement?
sales.
They're usable sales. And what is the latest sale you have there? Can you
The
point
latest
us to
sale I have here would be July 4th, 2019.
And we're dealing with what's the reference date?
April 1st, 2023. So these sales would require some sort of time adjustment to reflect the current value as they are more dated. But these are the sales that I had that were market sales.
Now, when you make a statement that they should be time adjusted, do you know the motivation behind every sale here with respect to your comparisons?
Up to my knowledge, I know that these sales are fee simple.
Right. But you would just make a statement that because they're older, they should be increased in value based on time adjustment. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Generally, the market movement seems to increase as the supply of land diminishes. So I guess a trend that I've noticed would be that the value of land has been increasing throughout the years.
Do you think that motivation has anything to do with land value or what a willing purchaser would pay?
Um, I think that any purchaser of land has motivation to use it and to develop it as it's meant to be developed.
Okay.
And obviously, that seems to be a reason why one would purchase vacant land
And what was the motivation of the purchaser of the subject property?
of the subject property.
Yes.
I wouldn't know that, but we are valuing it as vacant land.
Would you expect the motivation to be because they own a property on Marion Street right in front of the sort of kitty corner to the subject property? Would you think that's a motivational factor?
I'm not sure.
Okay. With respect to your comparisons, you've produced comparisons on secondary routes here, St. Anne, St. Anne, St. Mary's, St. Anne, St. Mary's. The subject is located in a residential street, would you say? In a residential neighborhood surrounding that lot, would you say?
I would agree with that, but it seems that just trying to see something here. It's about a block and a bit away from St. Mary's Road.
But it's not on St. Mary's Road. It's not on a major thoroughfare, is it?
No, it's on Horace Street and yeah.
So in terms of development potential, would you say that your comparisons are superior with respect to development potential?
Well, in terms
Commercial
of,
development potential, that is, sorry.
sorry,
Sorry, commercial development potential.
the comparables perhaps might be more superior in the sense that they are on St. Anne's and St. Mary's, but I don't think that the subject is too far away from St. Mary's, and also it's near Marion and Taché, which are also generally not unpopular roads as well.
Okay.
And if the comparables are superior, the fact that these are dated sales and that there would be a time adjustment reflecting this as well for the comparables, and if you took that into account with the subject, then it seems that it would kind of, this subject would kind of, just looking at the age of the comparable sales that I do have, that it's not unreasonable that it has a net rate per square foot of $48.44.
Okay, and finally, what is your best comparable?
I would say that my best comparable would be comparable 1, 4, and 5. Comparable 1 as it's the most recent sale I have. Comparable 4 as it's, and 5 as they're similar, most similar in the land area to the subject, as well as comparable 5 is closest in terms of proximity, it seems, to the subject neighborhood, and comparable 4 as well as another close one to that neighborhood.
Okay, but I'm asking you, which is your best comparable? Which one? Pick one.
I would have to say comparable one.
Comparable one is your best, and that's located on St. Anne's Road and
St. Anne's
bus route,
Road.
heavy traffic, etc. Okay. Those are all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I'm trying to get my head around the question that was asked of you about it being a residential community. In your chart on page 2, you zone it as a commercial community, as all your comps are. Is it a residential community or a commercial community?
Well, it seems that if we look on my page 4, where there's that aerial view, there is commercial to the left of it and above it. And we can see that below on Horace Street, there are residential homes. So it seems to be mixed. And what I would think would be that the zoning C2 may be intended to serve, in a sense, residential communities.
That's it?
Yeah.
If, you may not be able to answer this, but if it was valued as a parking lot versus a vacant lot, would you see a difference in value?
I think if it was assessed as a parking lot, it would be valued using the income approach, but that would have to be the highest and best use. And I believe that the subject was at one point in time, I think before 2016, it was valued as a parking lot, and it seems that just bear with me here, sorry. It seems at that time, before it was switched to vacant land, and the reason, I guess, why it's VRIS2 was because at that time it was also zoned R2, is that the parking lot was operating on a cost recovery basis. It seems that was the reasoning.
Would that support the contention that I think you made, that the parking lot serves the owner across the street?
That would be my assumption. I don't have any information
Yeah,
regarding that.
okay. And would the value be higher as a parking lot or lower?
I think for this case, it would be lower.
Okay. Why do you say that? It would just have a lower value per square foot?
In terms of it being valued on the income approach, I think what would happen is that a parking lot in this area, especially if it's primarily like just an assumption, would be that it's, I guess, somehow connected to 130 Marion. I don't think it would be comparable to parking lots that we have in downtown where they're able to charge rates of like just higher rates. I don't think.
I understand.
Yeah, thank you.
One last question. So if this property was to change classification or zoning from what you have it as to a parking lot, whose responsibility is that? Is it us, the board? Is it you, the assessor? Or
Oh,
is it the owner?
the zoning is C2. I don't think that would be changing. Are you meaning the property type?
Yeah, well, the classification you have it as a residential 2 versus
No,
parking
no.
lot.
The zoning here is C2, and that is commercial zoning. And I believe it was before 2016, it was zoned as R2. And that's why there's that slight discrepancy between, I guess, looking at the parcel use code for the subject and the comparables, right? In terms of they all have the same zoning, but the subject has VRIS2 as the parcel use code, whereas comparables have the vacant commercial.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Robson, any questions?
Just one. So you mentioned that comparable 4 and 5 are two of your strongest comparables. How much weight should we put on a sale 10, 11 years ago?
I think a good thing to take from looking at these sales would be the sale price per square foot and just keeping in mind the fact that it was roughly nearing 10 years ago, is that there would be a time adjustment. So it just kind of, in a sense, brackets, in my opinion, that the current rate per square foot that we have for the subject assessed at $48.44 is not unreasonable.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. McCubbin may be able to clarify this either in his presentation or in questioning, but I'm just wondered, are you aware if this parking lot is income producing?
I don't have any information as
You don't know,
to...
yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, that's all the questions I had. So Mr. McCubbin, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Bear with me, please. So we have the property owners Enterprise St. Boniface, Inc. The client is Mainland Commercial Real Estate, Manitoba. That property address is 133 Horace Street. The lot size is 6,111 square feet. It is zone C2. The current assessed value is $299,000, and we're requesting that the assessed value be reduced to $225,000. And I will show the reasons why. If I can get you to turn your attention to page 6 of my brief, please. So you can see the subject property on the first paragraph there, and that's a photograph from Horace Street, and then the attached building that the owner owns. Well, it's not attached; it's across the laneway at the back, and it's the blue building right next to the brown multi-story building. So moving along to page 7, you can see again a bird's eye view of the parking lot. It is used for parking. It has been used for parking for quite some time. The top of the page there is the laneway. That's not a street. Below where the 2 white cars are, the 3 white cars, that's Forest Avenue, obviously. It's used for accessory parking in the neighborhood. And then a little bit of an eagle's eye view coming out a little bit further, showing you the relative location of the subject property as it's in relation to Marion Street, Goulet, and Tashi Avenue. So if I could get you to turn to page 8 of my presentation, please. The subject property is 6,111 square feet. Rectangular parcel located between Kenny and Tashi Avenue on the north side of Forest Avenue. The surrounding properties are a mix of multi-residential, single-family dwellings, light commercial properties, and parking. The lot was originally was rezoned from R2 to C2 in 2012. KZ 231/2010 would be the document, and allowed for the creation of a non-accessory surface parking lot. So now what that means, it's not an accessory specifically to the owner's building in the front. It's not needed for the operation of that building. It's a non-accessory surface parking lot. Previously, the site was used as a non-conforming parking lot for tenants, customers, and staff of 130 Marion Street. So it was non-conforming previous to being rezoned. A house existed on the site and was demolished in 1999. The parking lot on site consists of 18 stalls, electrical servicing, and it is paved, as you've heard. So moving along to highest and best use, and it's an important part of this presentation or any presentation, and the highest and best use of this site is as a parking lot. There won't be any development in the near or foreseeable future with respect to commercial ventures, commercial buildings, etc. So it's going to be used for the foreseeable future as a parking lot. And that's what it's being valued at. And it was valued previously by the Assessment and Taxation Department as a parking lot. If I can get you to turn to page 12 of my presentation, please. I've used two approaches to value with respect to this property. The direct comparison approach to value it starts on page 12. And I've chosen two sales that are relatively close to the reference date, and hop, skip, and a jump from the subject property. They're not located on major arterial routes. They're actually in a better location than the subject property. The subject property is on a residential street, and these are on Des Murons. I don't think I have to tell you the level of traffic and the development along Des Murons. I think we're well aware of that. So the first property, 547 Des Murons, 5920 square feet, zone C2, sale price of $240,000, which equates to $40.51 a square foot. And the sale date was April 2021. So 2 years out from the reference date. 319 Des Murons is 6106 square feet, zone C2, $313,000 was the actual sale price for the property. Equivalent sale price per square foot would be $60.01. And that sale took place in June of 2019. So if we can go further down that page, you'll see the location of 547 Des Murons. And a two-story fourplex residential building was constructed on the site in 2023. So it was purchased for that purpose. There was motivation there, and it has been developed right now. 319 Des Murons. This property is used as a parking lot and is situated directly across from Inferno's Bistro. So it's used for a parking lot, and there's also some accessory storage on there in the form of a trailer. So sale number one is a bit smaller than the subject property and is in a superior location in the same neighborhood. Sale number two is superior than the subject property in location and use. It's used for parking and storage. Adjusting sale one down by 5% is deemed reasonable when comparing it to the subject property. Therefore, a rate of $38.48 per square foot will be used to value the subject property. So 6,111 square feet at $38.48 a square foot, gives us a value of $235,000. And that's based on the direct comparison approach. And in fact, that would have been the most recent sale that I'm alluding to also, that I'm comparing it to 2021. With respect to the income approach to value, that starts on page 14 of my brief. The income, the rent roll details indicate that a rate of $90 per month per stall is achievable for this parking lot. A gross rate of $90 per stall per month will be used in the calculation to estimate gross annual income for the subject property. So the gross income of the property is therefore 18 stalls in total times $90 per stall per month times 12 months. So we have a total gross income of $19,440. Moving along, with respect to expenses, parking expenses are consistent in most areas. Typical expenses account for items such as management, insurance, utilities, snow clearing, and cleaning and repair and maintenance of the site. The expense ratio is a simple ratio comparing income and expense expressed as a percentage. On page 15, you'll see we have surface parking lots, expense ratios, and this is the information I have. A lot of them are in the downtown area. One is on William Avenue. That one is at 49.6%. It's an expense ratio, but nevertheless, minimum expense ratio of 36.54, maximum of 82.46. The average being 52.11, and I would go with the median of 49.36 in this data set. With respect to the subject property, I've reduced that further to 45% of the with respect to the expense ratio. So I am actually deducting less than is being portrayed here with respect to what's reasonable as an expense ratio. As I've said, the median is 49.36 or 50%. I'm using 45%. So moving along with my calculation, based on the above analysis, we believe an expense ratio of 45% would be reasonable. You can see the gross income is $19,440 with an expense ratio deducted of 87.48. So we arrive at a net operating income of $10,692. And that's the NOI. So with respect to the capitalization rate, that starts on page 16. The following sales are sales that occurred prior to April 1st, 2023 reference date. The majority of these properties are located in downtown or in the cusp of the downtown area again. So just to be mindful of that. Based on this chart, a reasonable cap rate for the subject property would be 5%. So we're applying a cap rate of 5% to the net operating income. And we arrive at a value of $214,000 or $35 a square foot. Now, to reconcile my value, the value arrived at by the direct comparison approach is $235,000, and by the income approach is $214,000. And I think they're both well supported. A reasonable value for the subject property would therefore be approximately $225,000. April the 1st, and that should be 2023. On my brief, not 24. That's an error there. So in summary, the current value of $299,000 is too high. And based on the above analysis, the market value of the subject property as of April 1st, 2023 reference date is $225,000. So we're asking that the board reduce the value to $225,000. With respect to my addenda, I go through my addenda quickly. You can see the owner on page 19. Page 20 shows the summary of the income and expense statement of returns. The income statement for the year ending December 2022 is located on page 21. And it's showing a net income of a negative net income. On page, sorry, please. On page 22, it shows their relative tenancies of those parking spaces, and you can see the number is 18. You can also see in the base rent area, there are some rents that the property on a monthly basis, they're getting $60 per stall per month, and in some cases they're getting $90. And they're showing vacancy with respect to this property also, and that could be due in part to the somewhat lasting effects of the pandemic. And I believe that's my presentation. I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sederhanova, do you have any questions?
Yes, so just going to your page 12, would you be knowledgeable as to if the two sales that you have here were market sales?
Oh, they were arm's length transactions as far as we know, bona fide transaction.
So would you have known that they were private sales?
I don't understand your question.
I guess just that, are you familiar with the two sales here having been a private sale type?
I'm not sure what your definition of private sale is in relation to this case.
Okay,
Please explain.
just that it may not have been open to the public on the market.
That could be they could be paying above market with respect to it if you're making a statement like that. And I suspect if you have any evidence to show to refute the values of these properties or motivation, you'll present that in rebuttal.
No, I don't have rebuttal. I was just wondering if you were familiar with the sale type for these two
I'm
properties.
familiar enough with the sales to use them in this valuation.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
Page 13. You adjusted the sale one down by 5%. It said that's reasonable. Why is it reasonable? Can you clarify that for me?
It's based on my judgment and some of, in the appraisal work, I have quite a bit of experience dealing with properties in the city of Winnipeg. Sometimes we have to make a judgment call based on our knowledge, past knowledge. I feel adjusting the sale one down by 5% is reasonable. I could have gone further, but I think 5% is a reasonable amount when comparing it to the subject, based on its general location and motivation, and the fact that that property was built upon soon after.
Okay, so other than your judgment, And your word, then we have no other evidence.
No, you have no other evidence with respect to how I came up with that 5%. And you will find that in appraisal. Not everything is justified to the nth degree. It's a matter of an opinion of value.
Okay, so it's subjective, it's not objective.
This whole exercise is subjective, yes.
And sale 2, you didn't need to make such an adjustment then.
No, I was comparing it primarily to sale.
Sure.
And as my best comparison.
So my second question was, why was the property rezoned in 2012? Do you know that?
Yes, it was being used, you can say, illegally. The owners were parking on it before it was rezoned, so it was not being compliant. It had to be rezoned to continue to be used as non-accessory parking.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, so effectively, you've provided us with 2 comps and only really used one in your evaluation. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've provided 2 approaches to value also, Madam Chair.
Yes, but so in terms of the second comp, I'm wondering why you provided it if you didn't seem to use it in your evaluation. I mean, it sold for, I'm just going back up here, a much higher rate than the one that you ended up using, correct?
That's it. It sold at a higher rate, and I'm not going to be hiding anything from this board. I think it's superior than the first comparison, and it's superior, obviously, to the subject property. There's a range of values. Those are the 2 ranges that I've chosen. They're close to the reference period, and that's what I have to work with. The best comparison is comparison number 1. There's a range of values there. There's also motivational factors involved.
Okay, and then you also stated that the subject property highest and best use was as a parking lot, and that in your opinion it would remain as a parking lot. Do you not think if that was to go up for sale and it remained as a parking lot, or even the value you put on the monthly rent, it's pretty close to St. Boniface Hospital? Is that not correct?
That is correct. It is close to St. Boniface Hospital, but it's a good way. In the wintertime, it's a little bit of a walk for someone to get there in terms of who works there. If they're going to visit someone, there's sufficient parking around St. Boniface Hospital to support that building. This specific building supports non-accessory use in the general vicinity.
And
Cache Avenue, Forest, Marion, and maybe it goes far as over to Goulet, but it's very localized.
is the lot obtaining income right now? I mean, you put $90 a month on it. Is there an income statement for it?
There is. It's located in my brief in the addenda. It's showing a negative income situation at this point in time. If we can turn your attention to page 21.
Yep, just found it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Net income is negative, and that's because of probably the space is not being all spoken for. But I have atoned for that, and I have in my income work, Madam Chair, I've used $90 per stall, which is what they're getting here, is the highest. And I've used obviously there's no vacancy involved here. I'm not reducing.
Yeah. Okay. And you didn't provide us with any comps for that area for parking, did you?
No.
Parking income. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, thank you. That's all my questions. Ms. Darhanova, do you have any summation?
No summary, thanks.
Okay, Mr. McCubbin?
No summary. Thanks, Madam Chair. I think
Okay.
the board is well aware of the situation.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will move on to item 4 on our agenda, which is docket 51 Roslyn Road. And thank you, Mr. McCubbin, for
Thank you.
presenting to us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just readmitting the applicant.
Okay.
It looks like the applicant may be away from his computer. Can I request a brief recess?
Yes, okay. Let's come back at let's give it 5 minutes if he's just stepped away. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. And the next item on our agenda is 51 Roslyn Road. And Ms. Bakoto, can you please swear in Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Neufeld. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so 51 Roslyn Road. I'm just going to confirm with both of you that we're dealing with the remainder of the docket this morning. We're dealing with assessed value only, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Edoharnova, please go ahead when you're ready.
File number is 24-4126. Roll number is 120324922200. Address is 51 Roslyn Road. The owner is Atlas Acceptance Corporation Limited. The roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,668,000. This is residential 2, taxable. The property type is vacant residential high density, and the zoning is RMFM. The land area, the assessable land area is 22,712 square feet. Going to page 2, we can see the land sale comparable table. So subject 51 Roslyn Road is within the River Osborne neighborhood, and it has the assessed land as 22,712 square feet with the zoning RMFM and the land influence being Assiniboine adjacent. The net rate per square foot for the subject is $73.44 for the assessment. And just to make note, so if we go to page 3 to the subject property image, we can see that there is some green space behind at the back of the parcel, and I would like to point out that the actual parcel area is 27,820 square feet, but we're only assessing the 22,712 square feet, which is kind of where the line is. Not, I guess to say would be that we're not assessing the green space behind the parking lot on 51 Roslyn, the subject. So going back to page 2 to go through the comparables. Comparable 1 is 320 River Avenue within the River Osborne neighborhood. It has a land area of 9,935 square feet, zoned RMFM, experiences a bus route, medium traffic, external corner, and park influence. It has a sale date of January 17th, 2022, with the sale price per square foot being $80.32. Comparable 2 is 290 River Avenue in the River Osborne neighborhood. It has a land area of 6,666 square feet, zoned RMFL, experiences a bus route, commercial adjacent, medium traffic, and a park influence. It has a sale date of June 18th, 2019, with the sale price per square foot being $80.26. Comparable 3 is 530 River Avenue in the McMillan neighborhood. It has a land area of 7,584 square feet. It's zoned RMFL and experiences a bus route, commercial adjacent influence, as well as medium traffic and external corner influences. The date of sale is October 2nd, 2018, and the sale price per square foot here is $93.62 per square foot. Comparable 4 is 381 Stradbrook Avenue in the River Osborne neighborhood. It has the land area at 7,367 square feet, and the zoning is RMFM, same as subject. Experiences the back lane, bus route, and medium traffic influence. And it has a date of sale being February 3rd, 2015, with a sale price per square foot at $65.83. Comparable 5 is 378 Wardlaw Avenue in the River Osborne neighborhood. It has a land area of 5,399 square feet, zoned RMFM. And the date of sale is August 7th, 2014. And the sale price per square foot here is $64.81. So considering this, I don't think that the land rate that we have for the subject at $73.44 is unreasonable. Seems well supported in my opinion. And we are, I guess, accounting for the river setback. Page 3, again, subject aerial images of comparable 1, comparable 2. Going to page 4, we can see comparable 3, 4, and 5. And then page 5 and 6 would be the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. That would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Yes. Just to clarify something for me here, you're speaking of the river on page 3, top of page 3, that red
Correct.
line.
Yeah, so we can see that in this image there, we can see the Assiniboine River.
Right now, but is that land actually on the title?
So for the parcel, yes, it is on the title, I believe. So the whole red line there for subject, right?
The red box.
Yeah, the red box.
That's the titled area.
The red box is the title area, and in our records, we have that as 27,820 square feet. And then
Oh, you're saying that it was
the
adjusted.
assessed area is not encompassing, I guess, the green space that's within the red rectangle subject box, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're saying that there is some land likely between what looks like the parking area and the
Parking
river.
lot and the river, that green space there
Yes,
is
okay.
currently not assessed.
And did that all date back to, I think the date of, can't remember the exact date, but when there was flooding and all the riverbanks eroded in this area around 2007, 2008, I think it was.
I wouldn't know.
Okay. So what is the red line in the river?
In the river,
Yeah.
that could be a neighborhood boundary as an assumption.
Okay.
Yes.
And just what this is the Assiniboine River, correct?
That's correct.
And did you measure the distance from the lot line to, like, right now the land is vacant, the building's been demolished, correct?
Correct.
And so did you investigate the setbacks required on the Assiniboine River, or actually it's a control zone on the Assiniboine River?
I did not investigate the setbacks as it's already developed and the parking's conforming with the, I guess, the rear of the adjacent properties as well.
Well, no, but in order to develop it now, they will have to conform to the bylaw, correct? Did you know what the required, what the control zone is from the river? How long it is?
I don't know the specifics, no.
Okay. But you can see on your sketch that some of the buildings go right up to the river and some are set back. Do you see that? Like the building, the 3 to the right is up on the riverbank, and whereas the one immediately to the west has been set back. Um, it, did you find that anything in there that gave concern?
That's not something I looked into for this parcel as it had been previously developed, and how the parking lot that an apartment would require as a development would require is already in place.
Well, do you know the dimensions of the lot? The width and the depth?
I don't have those specifics in my brief.
Okay. Well, given that the control zone is 300 feet, would you say that this appears to get a rough idea of the depth of the property?
Sorry?
The control zone on the Assiniboine River is 300 feet from the summer shoreline. Given that, do you have any idea where the control zone would end or start on this lot? And if you haven't measured it, it's fine, and I can talk about it later, but I was just wondering if you looked into it.
No, that's not something I've looked into.
Okay. Oh, sorry, my machine just jammed because I touched the wrong button here. I was going to ask you a question about get to another different question here. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Your sales, so the subject property is a zoned RMFM. What does that mean in terms, in simple terms? There's a density on it, isn't there?
There is, so it's a multiple family district. Yeah, multi-family residential structure, it seems. And in terms of density factors, RMFM would be able to be developed at a higher density than RMFS and at a lower density than RMFL, taking into consideration the lot size.
Right. Now, do you know what those density numbers are? And if you want to look at I don't think you put them in your report, my page 7 has them. You see RMFM is 800 square feet per unit, and RMFL allows 400 square feet per unit. So, and I'm kind of the leading question here because but I'll get to it. So if this were zoned RMFM as it is, it would be allowed to have 28 units on it. But if it was zoned
Madam Chair,
RMFL,
may I interrupt?
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I was just going to say, Mr. Newfeld, I'm not sure what you're going to say, Mr. Whitbread, but you're introducing evidence here rather than asking a question.
yes, I understand that. I'm forming the basis for the question. I'll simplify it.
Thank you. And Mr. Whitbread, is that what you were going to?
Absolutely.
Thank
Yep.
you. Okay, thank you.
You will see later that RMFL allows twice the density of RMFM. Would that not be a factor in the purchase price of a property?
I think with that being said, you would have to take into account the minimum lot area as well.
Well, I
And
guess I'm asking here is that I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the assessment department has presented a a rate per square foot. Should, I mean, in my world, shouldn't, in the real estate world, are you not aware that nobody cares about the rate per square foot? They base it on the density, the approved density.
I am honestly not following, but on my page 2, I do have other comparables that are zoned RMFM as well. So comparables 1 and 4 and 5 are zoned RMFM. And
Yes,
my,
and we'll get to that, but I'm just asking in theory, generally, if there's been ever thought given to follow the industry standard, which is to base a sale price on the approved density.
not really following.
Okay. Now you're mentioning the sales. Now, comparable number 1, 320 River, were you aware that they obtained a variance to change that to RMFL?
At the time of the sale?
I don't, I asking the question, were you aware that they obtained a variance? And I can give you the DASC on that, which is the official application for it. It's, sorry, DAV 20600622022. So this is a 2022 request for a variance, which was approved to change it to RMFL. Were you aware of that?
What I'm aware of is that at the time of the sale, it seems to be zoned RMFM. And in my opinion, comparable 1, 320 River is my best comparable.
Which one? 320
Comparable
River?
1, I
Comparable
would say
one.
is my best comparable,
Okay.
as it's most recent and same zoning as subject, as well as the largest land area per square
Well, I'm
foot.
putting to you that it's not the same zoning, it's RMFL.
That is not in my brief.
But again, you're presenting evidence, Mr.
Okay, I understand. Yes, okay. Do you regularly check to see whether the sales you're using have obtained variances to change their density development permission?
That is not something I've looked into.
Okay. I will then therefore restrict my commentary and rebuttal on this, a verbal rebuttal, but you're going to hear it. Sorry, then that takes me to do you know whether or not the subject has obtained a development permit at this point in time? Or at the point in time of the April 1st, 2023?
I'm not familiar with any, and that is not in my brief.
I just asked if you're aware. Okay, those are my questions.
And Mr. Neufeld, just to clarify, you're talking about rebuttal. Do you have rebuttal evidence?
I'm going to present verbal.
Okay, well, do you want to just maybe do that in summation then, if you don't have any evidence to present to us?
Well, in case there's a question on it, you know, you can't question me on summation, but you can question me on rebuttal and so it's your call. I mean, if you want the opportunity to question on it.
Oh, we can question you in summation. So I think that's the way we'll handle it if you don't have any actual evidence to put in front of us.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Robson, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Mr. Whitbread?
Yes. When we look at this property, it's the only property you presented that is on the river. Is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
And would you suggest that a river property would demand a premium for its placement on the river over other properties that are not on the river?
I don't think I would be able to speak on that today, unfortunately.
So you don't know?
I don't know.
Thank you. And you don't have any information on the measurements of this property, then you are not able to produce that. I can't see it in your evidence, but you're not able to produce the length and width of that property.
Roughly, it seems that, and this would be, I guess, just quick measurements, that the width of the property seems to be about 92 feet, and that the length going to the shortest part of the property is some 282 feet, it seems roughly.
Would you be 10% off, 20% off, 30% off? You're saying roughly.
Yeah, so I would assume it to be pretty accurate. It's just not the actual surveyed measurements.
Okay, is it a document you're looking at that's providing that information?
A measuring tool that I just quickly utilized.
I see. And I mean, you would agree, would you agree that the measurements for this property are fairly significant, given the contention that there's a setback and the setback is significant? The measurements are pretty important to us in terms of determining a value, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Coming back to Mr. Neufeld's contention that the density is what really drives value versus proximity to a river or other values, would you agree with his assessment that density is the most important factor?
In terms of development, since it would have to be, I guess, it's multifamily district zoned, density is important, as a developer would be able to develop more units on it versus less. But I don't think that for the subject that it having a zoning of RMFM makes it undesirable to develop.
Yeah, okay. I don't think I heard him say that, but I just heard him say that the density has an impact on value.
Yeah, density does have an impact.
And if we can go to your photo on page 3, the top photo. Are you there?
Mm-hmm.
So that red line in the river, you indicated you're not sure what it is, other than it might be a breakdown of the neighborhood or the community in that particular jurisdiction. Is that correct?
That would be my assumption, that it would be just a visual boundary for the neighborhood.
Would you have any information that would tell you that that's the summer flood line or the summer water line for property measurement?
I would not be familiar with that.
Okay, okay. And as I look at the red box, the sort of on the angle in the river, and then I move up a little bit, there's a concrete parking pad beside this property that seems to follow a line until you get to the big building on the right that goes right to the river. Is that your thing? Is your thinking that that would be the setback for the river, that green space behind the parking zone and behind this property's parking zone? Or do you know that?
Sorry, just I'm unaware.
Sorry, you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. In your comps, your size of your comps are significantly lower than the subject property. In your opinion, how does the size affect the square footage amount that generally properties are sold for?
Well, I chose these comparables due to location,
Understand, yeah.
and what I'm familiar with would be that, I guess, lot zoned RMFM would have a minimum lot area not requiring variance of 9,000 square feet, and then RMFL would have a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet. So to
Sorry, go
me,
ahead.
when I look at the comparables that are under 9,000 square feet, if they're RMFM, or under 20,000 square feet, if they're RMFL, it seems that those properties would require some sort of variance to become developed.
Okay,
And so that's why I think they're comparable despite the difference in lot size.
okay, thank you. That's all I had. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Well, I was laughing. Sorry, you may have heard me. I was looking at it. I didn't prepare this, and the person who did thought it was an apartment block. I've been working with the owners for wow, long time, 20 years, and very, very familiar with it. And he's been trying to demolish it for years because it was a bachelor unit apartment block, and aptly named Saigon House. So he finally got his demo permit, and he's been working on getting approval for development. So you can see from the pictures where it was located. Incidentally, the depth, the average depth of the property is 245 feet. And that would be the number to work with on the setback. It's 300 foot. It's not a hard setback. It's a control zone, and the hard setback is, I believe it's, I can't. It varies by case to case. I usually see about 200 feet as a hard setback. But the development zone setback requires additional planning approvals and geotechnical reports, and then from a physical point of view, when you build your building, is the foundation, you have to go down to bedrock. So it's more costly to build. So a question was, is riverbank property worth more in an apartment? It's a positive influence, but with this property, since all of it would be subject to the control zone, it's more costly than you would get your money worth out of it. It's just going to be a more costly project. The density on this, and this I did give you evidence on page 7, is the densities, and the column to look at is the third column, minimum lot area per dwelling unit. So RMFM is 800 square feet. So what that means is they could put 28 units on this lot. And this is we didn't give you any evidence of sales, and this is, but I think it's fair for me to address this, and I will in rebuttal. But it's safe to say that the assessors, once calculated correctly, indicate a range of 26,000 to 43,000 per unit on an approved density. So this is where it puts us to a value in that range. This is how a developer looks at it. They don't care about the square feet. What does it matter? If you were allowed to put on the other side of the river where the old Board of Revision was, that's inside downtown zoning. So the restriction on density, there is no restriction. You could put it up as many as you'd like, but on this side of the river, we're in suburban control zones, since you can't go that big. that it'll be impacted by how many units you put in. And why would any developer pay more than 40,000 a unit for any land on the river? Because they know they can, what the break is, where they can afford, where they're going to make money, essentially. And that's how it's done. Nobody cares about the sale price per square foot or the sales price per acre. It's always density. And which is why when you see a piece of land go up for sale and then look at it as a comparison, in my business, first thing we do is we go to the decision-making information system and check, is there an application for a variance for greater density? And when I do an appraisal, and I don't do them just for, I don't do any appraisals for tax appeal. I do them in the real world. And when I do it for vacant land, for development, for a project, that's what everybody uses, is what is the rate per unit? Anyone who uses something differently is completely misleading, because you're not following the income potential. And so essentially what I'm going to ask for here today is a rate of $40 per developable, $40,000 per approved unit, which works out to $1,120,000. And I am so sorry we messed this up. But there's a nice picture of the old site on page 2. And other than that, as my comments will then be restricted to summation, and I will give you the information on the subjects on the assessor's 5 lots.
Okay, so just I'm just clarifying your value then, which has changed from your brief. So you're saying $40 per approved unit for this type of property, 1,100,000.
Yeah, $40,000 per
40,000. Sorry, yeah, 40,000.
which is 28 units.
Yeah, 40,000 times 28 with a value of 1,120,000. Correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Dorhanova, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Whitbread.
No, I'm fine. No, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Robson?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No, and I have no questions either. So, Ms. Fedornova, do you have any summation?
I guess to summarize would be the fact that the land area we're assessing it as is 5,108 square feet less than the actual. My best comparable would be comparable 1, which is same neighborhood, same zoning, most recent sale, January 17th, 2022, with a sale price per square foot of $80.32, and that subject currently is assessed at a net rate of $73.44, which seems reasonable in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. I'm certainly not a zealot or care about religion anyway, but this is my Bible. And this is what we follow. And this is what everybody follows in valuation.
What
The
is
value.
What
Pardon
is
me?
it? You're
Oh.
holding a book up that means nothing to us. Thank you.
So the principle, what we'll call it, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, the value is based on the property rights, not the dirt or the wood or the concrete. It's the property right. In this case, the property right is based on the zoning. The assessor presented you 5 sales. Sale number 1 is not RMFM, it's RMFL. On that basis, the value per unit is 33,250 because it's allowed 400 square feet per unit, and there's 24 units approved. Sale number 2 is correctly identified as RMFL. That rate is 33,438. And the next one is RMFL, 39,444 per approved unit. Number 4 was approved as RMFL, which is 400 square feet per unit, 18 units, 26,944 per unit. And the last one, it wasn't approved, it was RMFM, but it was approved a lower density. Instead of 800 square feet per unit, it was approved at 674 square feet per unit, which allows 8 units and an indicated sale of 43,737 per approved unit. Looking at this, I looked at the subject, and essentially I think that the more current ones are more pertinent, and they saw a range there of 33,000 to 39,444, and that's where I said, you know, reasonably 40,000 per square foot, sorry, 40,000 per unit, approved unit would be the number, and that's how I came to it for you today. Again, I apologize, it's verbal. This is just no bad work on our part, and I'm happy that we can fix it verbally. And as I mentioned, the river setback is it's not an issue that would stop people from building, but it reflects what you're going to pay. And I think the main issue here is the fact that there's no space outside the development zone where you can build. So if you had an appropriate setback from the river, you would put your building there, and you put your parking down to the river or a little bit of green space, and not worry about the 300-foot protection zone. As it stands, they have no way out of it. And it means, in dollars, and I don't know the exact dollars and cents, but it means foundation to the bedrock, which is going to bring your project costs up and offset any perceived advantage to being on the river. I think the 40,000 is a good number. And the last thing I will want to leave you with is there is some merit in looking at this incorrect workup, in that what they were earning at the time was so pathetically small that demolition was the best idea. Just by demolishing it, they unlocked the value of the land. If they had left it as is, you have an underperforming, it's lost its highest and best use. And even demolishing it and selling the land would make more money than selling the block itself. So again, a very unique property, and I've seen the plans. They are going for this one was 25 units, and they're going to probably be building about similar, going a bit higher and much bigger, and trying to unlock the potential of the land. But that's not relevant to today, because right now it's just land. There are some development approval snags, and can't talk about
that. Yeah, that's also a post reference. So
no, exactly, but if the question's asked, what, you know, why haven't you built on it yet? I'm answering that in advance. There's been some planning snags. Thank you. That's all. And I'm glad to answer any other questions on what I gave you in summation.
Anybody have any questions? No.
Just one.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Pedro.
Okay, so the per unit basis that you've, I guess, previously listed out for the comparables that I've used, in your list out of that, would you not say that the subject coming out at 40,000 per unit is superior than all the other per unit rates that you listed out for the comparables that I've presented today?
What do you mean by superior?
in terms of the value that you've associated in your rebuttal summary.
Well, as what I did say was that the three newest sales were between 33,250 and 39,444, and I just put it at the high end of the range.
Okay, but even for like considering that comparables 1, 2, and 3 that I've presented, they've sold in between 2022 and 2018 from a sale price per square foot ranging from $80.26 to $93.62.
We don't care about the square feet. We care about the density approval. Now, one of the things about the sales you've listed, I didn't even get into, is the utility of the land. So the question is, oh, it's on the river. Is it worth more? Yes and no.
Okay, I don't think that that's the question that she asked though, Mr. Neufeld.
Oh, well, she asked about her sales, and they all feature full use of the land, which means for parking. There's still a
Currently for the subject, the assessed rate is $73.44, which is less than comparables 1, 2, and 3 altogether. So it seems that that could already be factored in, no?
No, not at all. It's again, it's not a number that anybody cares about. I mean, I've been working on development projects for 25 years, and I have never heard anybody use a rate per square foot for multifamily. It just doesn't factor in. It's always a rate per unit, and my little Bible says so too. That's the way you value land.
No further questions for the land value. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, you said you had a question?
I do. Just quickly, when was the building demolished?
Just I have that answer.
Was it post-reference?
We had the assessment that was put in place for the last cycle reflected a demolished state, and so you know, the way it works is that it's the physical condition as of the date of the tax year and the market conditions as of the reference year. So I don't recall, but the last assessment was based on land value only. Because I processed that for the owner.
If you don't have it,
no, I do, but well, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it would make any real difference. Here we go. Oh, yeah, we had okay. It was funny. When we got it changed to land value, the assessor changed it to commercial. We had to get them to change it back. Okay, the change back was made in April of 24. I know that, but
that could help out.
yeah.
The demo's permit issue date was February 28th, 2023.
Okay. That sounds right.
that's all I needed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. That concludes this property. So we thank you. We'll move on to 371 Stan Bailey Drive. And Ms. Odaronova, please proceed when you're ready.
File number is 24-4064. Roll number is 030930145520. Address is 371 Stan Bailey Drive. The owner is Morano South Point Inc. Roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is 1,094,000, classification residential 2 with a liability of taxable. This is vacant residential high density, zoning is RMFM, and the land area is 41,890 square feet. Going to page 2, we have the land sale comparables. And we can see that for the subject, it's in the South Point neighborhood. And it has the RMFM zone and there's no land influence. And comparable 1 is 290 Frontier Trail in the Waverly West B neighborhood. It has a land area of 36,330 square feet. It's zoned RMU. It has a land influence of external corner, and the date of sale is December 16th, 2022, and the sale price per square foot is $39.37. Comparable to Zero Park East Drive in the Bridgewater Center neighborhood. Has land area of 48,988 square feet. Zoning is RMFS. It's influenced by a back lane and external corner. The date of sale is February 2nd, 2017, and the sale price per square foot is $21.33. Comparable 3 is located in the Bridgewater Center neighborhood as well, with a land area of 45,079 square feet. It's zoned RMFS, with the date of sale being October 5th, 2015, and the sale price per square foot being $26.95. Comparable 4, again in the Bridgewater Center neighborhood. Land area is 45,621 square feet. It's zoned RMFS, influenced by commercial, adjacent heavy traffic influences. And the date of sale is October 2nd, 2015, with the sale price per square foot being $21.70. Comparable 5 is located within the South Point neighborhood, same as subject. It has a land area of 306,516 square feet, zoned RMFM, same as subject, influenced by heavy traffic, external corner, has the date of sale of June 5th, 2015, a sale price per square foot being $16.08. The land valuation for the subject is assessed at a rate of $26.12 per square foot, which in my opinion seems reasonable given the comparables and the fact that the comparables, aside from comparable 1, would most likely require a time adjustment of some sort. And going to page 3, we can see an aerial of the subject, and we can see that there is, within the red rectangle is the subject, and it seems like there's some asphalt on the left-hand edge, as well as the already developed development on the left, and that L shape has the same owner as the subject, just to point out. And then the lower half of page 3 shows the subject in terms of other neighborhoods. And on page 4, we see comparable 1, comparable 2 and 3. Going to page 5, we can see aerials of comparable 4 and 5. And then page 6 and 7 would be the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. That would conclude my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Questions?
Yes. Again, as with the other one, did you investigate any of the development issues with this property?
That's not something that I've done, no.
Okay. And your sales are in a broad range of zoning. Do you know the densities for RMU?
The density for that one would be, seems the minimum lot area per dwelling unit is 500 square feet,
So more units per
more
area.
units. And
Yeah.
also for RMFS, less units than RMFM.
Okay, that's fine, yes. And did you calculate any of the rates on a unit basis?
I hadn't, because I'm looking at the sale price per square foot of the land as my comparables.
Okay, has it been built on yet? Do you know?
It's vacant land.
Okay, it's still physically vacant, and the you mentioned that the other parcels, adjacent parcels are held up by the same owner, correct? That's, or were you saying both of them were?
Just the one directly to the left that's developed in an L shape, from what I can tell, has the same
Right, okay.
owner.
And the other unit to the upper part of this picture is a separate owner. But they were the original, you're aware that they were originally all one parcel separated into three, and the other one sold from the owner of the remnants to this person.
Not too familiar.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine, that's fine. Sorry, I shouldn't have even have asked that. Uh, you were the and okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Robson, do you have any questions? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Looking at your comparables, would you not agree that values in Bridgewater are typically higher than South Point?
I would agree with that, but I would also consider the fact that the Bridgewater neighborhood doesn't seem to be too far in terms of distance from the subject location, and as well that for the Bridgewater Center, right? The year of sale here is 2017 and 2015. So even these sales would require, they are in a superior location than that of subject, but I would consider the fact that these sales would get a time adjustment of some sort. And then considering that, I guess keep in mind that the subject's in a less superior neighborhood, but it's not in terms of distance. I didn't think it was too far away to use as comparables.
Okay. And then in terms of the land influence, is the Brady landfill at all an influence on the South Point neighborhood?
Not that I'm familiar with.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Whitbread.
I have none, thank you.
And I have no questions, thank you. So, Mr. Neufeld, please proceed when you're ready.
Yeah, again, this is I guess I take the blame. I was away for a while, and I had a rather urgent matter to attend to. I should have provided a bit more direction on this. The valuation made up here is it's very simple, very basic, and one issue being presented in that 371 Stan Bailey and 395 Stan Bailey, which are shown on your picture on page 1, was the same development approval, and 395 was allowed to be developed because it was going to use parking and access through 371. So you'll notice on the picture on page 1 that there is no direct access to Stan Bailey from the rear parcel, which is 395. As a result, when density approval was met for 371, they only got 12 units. And the permissible density in this case was much higher. It was 41,890 divided by 800. It could have gone to 52 units, but at the hearing, and I was just looking for a DAV for you, can't find it. They weren't given. It was a choice either or, so there's only 12 units there because of the setbacks and access required for the rearage site, and that's an impact that's permanent. Page 2 shows construction of 371, and page 4, top of page 4 again shows the lot lines, and you can see that 371, 395, I should say, Stan Bailey to the left is completely landlocked. So I don't think I would have valued it this way, but the request here is for 500 and I saw it here somewhere.
I think it's on page 3 of your brief, Mr. Newfeld.
I see it, 505,000, which is the loss in utility of the land. I guess there was a question here about South Point and Bridgewater, and by the way, South Point is a different neighborhood. It's was controlled by Ladco. It's the individual ownership. That's what we're on. Bridgewater was controlled by Manitoba Housing. Now, what most of the transactions around town center in Bridgewater became condominiums. So a condominium is a different transaction than multifamily rental. They tend to go for a higher rate because the developer gets his money out quicker rather than sitting and waiting for a return. There's an immediate cash flow. So when you can get approval for condominium, it's a different issue altogether. Again, we wouldn't use a rate per square foot, but I don't. I'm cursing here to myself. All I can say is this is a unique piece of property that had its permissible density cut by 75% because it favored the lot at the back. And as a remnant, it has a remnant value. I don't disagree with the number 505,000 because what that equals to is 505 divided by 12 units is 42,000 per unit, which is a pretty basic number per unit. This is a case where the restrictions from the authorities reduced the yield, but favored 395 next door. Thank you. That's all I can
say. So can I just, Mr. Newfeld, I'm just clarifying. So you're sticking with the value that's on page 3, which is 505, but yeah. You're valuing it at 42,000 per unit?
That would be me personally doing it. I haven't provided a valuation for you. I'm validating it.
Yeah. All right.
And I think that's consistent with what happened here.
And on your evaluation here, so your evaluation that's on your brief is at 19,345
of usable land.
Usable land. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Dornova, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Robson, any questions?
No, I also don't have any.
And I do not either. So that concludes this item. Let's take another quick 5-minute break and come back at 11:05, please. Thank you very much. We'll call the meeting back to order. And the next item on our agenda today is 300 Tuxedo Avenue. So Ms. Edornova, please proceed when you're ready.
File number is 24-3989. Roll number is 10006777345. Address is 300 Tuxedo Avenue. Owner is Investors Group Trust Co. Limited. Roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $2,406,000. Classification is residential 2 with a liability taxable. The property type is vacant residential high density and the zoning is RMU. The land area is 60,341 square feet. Going to page 2, we can see that the subject is influenced by bus route, bus stop, external corner, and medium traffic. And the land valuation on the lower half of the page shows the subject having a net rate per square foot at $39.87. Going through the comparables, comparable 1 is 585 Belontre Drive in the Chevrier neighborhood. The land area here is 71,410 square feet. Zoning is RMU. Land influence here is no sewer, no water. Date of sale is April 9th, 2021, with the sale price per square foot being $29.28. Comparable 2, again, in the Chevrier neighborhood, has a land area of 56,447 square feet. Zoned RMU, has the sale date of January 18th, 2021, with the sale price per square foot being $22.98. Comparable 3 is 20 Walker Crescent within the Lord Roberts neighborhood. It has a land area of 65,226 square feet with the zoning RMU. It's influenced by a rail line. The sale date is November 10th, 2020, with a sale price per square foot of $26.08. Comparable 4 is 15 Berwick Crescent in the Lord Roberts neighborhood as well. It has a land area of 98,337 square feet, zoned RMU, influenced by an internal corner and rail line. Sale date here is July 10th, 2020. And the sale price per square foot is $26.44. Comparable 5 is 139 Tuxedo Avenue in the Old Tuxedo neighborhood. I would say that this is my best comparable due to location. It has the land area of 84,501 square feet. It's zoned RMFM, which is the only comparable that is different from subject. And the land influences bus route, same as subject and heavy traffic. The date of sale is July 19th, 2017, and the sale price per square foot is $35.50. So given that the subject today is assessed at $39.87 square foot, it does not seem unreasonable considering the comparable sale information that I've presented here today. Going to page 3, we can see an aerial of the subject and there seems to be a development that's starting to be built on it. Comparable 1 on the lower half of the page, and then on page 4 we see comparables 2 and 3. All the comparables are developed already in the images, and comparable 5 page 5 shows comparable 4 and comparable 5. And comparable 5, I guess, is the closest in proximity to the subject, and pages 6 and 7 would be our Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and that would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld.
Thanks. Sorry, I lost them here. Okay, got it. So the land is on the shopping center, correct?
Yeah, it seems that there is residential on the other side of Tuxedo, some sort of shopping adjacent to the development, and then looks like on the other side of Corridon, there's some more not too sure what some of these structures are, but it seems that there's some type of community center as well.
Okay, and is it currently under construction?
In the images that I have, it is currently under construction. Whether that's complete or not, I am not familiar with. It would require inspection and all that.
Right. No, that's why I was just looking at it. I think I'm probably looking at the same image. When was your image dated? I'm looking at one October 24th. Oh, that's a couple of weeks ago. Still under construction. Did you look back in time to see what was on the subject property before they started building?
I hadn't done that exercise, no.
Did you research the environmental database to see if the site is registered as contaminated?
That is not something that I've done, nor do I have that information in my brief.
Given that it was a Shell service station for 20, 30, 40 years before the apartment block was being built on it, reasonable to assume that it's on the database, though? You're aware it's an automatic in Manitoba.
I'm not too familiar with
That's fine.
these processes.
Okay, no, that's fine. And you mentioned now all of your sales except number 5 are all RMU, correct?
That's correct.
And there seems to be a gap in the sale prices between the RMUs and the RMFM. So any explanation for that?
That would be due to the location of my comparables 1 through 4. They are less desirable than that of the subject and of comparable 5, and it's not the easiest to look for vacant land sales in the Edgeland neighborhood and surrounding areas, so I did have to go and use, I guess, go into other neighborhoods that are not as desirable as the subject and just focus on same zoning and similar or comparable land area.
Okay, and also in regard to the date, the one you're relying on is the oldest by far. It's 6 years out of date from the reference, correct?
It's a 2017 sale,
6 years from a reference date almost.
roughly, yeah.
And the rest of your sales are within 3 years?
Yes,
would not a more recent sale be more reliable?
it would be had the neighborhood had that to offer, which it didn't. So in this case, I'm putting most of my weight on comparable 5 due to location. And we can always, I guess, assume that there would be some type of time adjustment affecting comparable 5.
Do you know who the vendor and purchaser were for number 5?
Up to my knowledge, I'm familiar that these are arm's length transactions and fee simple sales. That's
Well,
what I'm
Then who's the
aware.
vendor? Who's the vendor?
I don't have that information in my brief.
Do you know the process upon which that particular land transaction occurred?
Those details are not in my brief.
Do you know? Did you research
That's
any
not
further?
something I've looked into,
Well, you said it's an arm's length transaction, and
up to my knowledge.
to your knowledge, that's I'm investigating your knowledge base. Why do you say it's an arm's length transaction? You don't know the circumstances of the sale. You don't know who the vendor is, who the purchaser is. Why is it an arm's length?
I guess in the tools that I had available to my disposal, it would appear that way. I have not myself done a deep dive into my comparables.
The location of 139 Tuxedo is on the Rady campus, correct?
I'll take your word for it.
It's called the Asper Jewish Community Center campus. Are you aware of that?
That would be new knowledge to me.
Oh, okay. And sorry, and was it developed for apartments or condominiums?
It was developed for condominiums.
Is the Asper Jewish Community Center a registered charity?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread.
I'm going to leave it there. I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Robson. Sorry, try that again.
I'll do the same and leave it there.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions. So, Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your presentation. Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Neufeld.
Well, you're lucky. I have going to bring up some rebuttal, and I think it's rather vital rebuttal given what the assessor has said.
Okay, let's do that at the end then. Let's hear your presentation first, and then we'll do the rebuttal.
Okay, well, okay, so the site is on the an apartment being built on the site of a former Shell service station. It's on the shopping center lands, and for the purpose of this, they split the title, and so that the apartment development has its own tax roll, because the shopping center, of course, does a tax calculation for its tenants, and they needed to have it clean and separated from the apartment complex, because it's a completely different usage. But it is registered on the environmental contaminated site list. I don't have the number for you, but I could probably find it in about 3 minutes, because it's something that's rather simple. If you have a gas station, it is always on the database for a contaminated site, always. It does not go away. You can remediate it. You can get some engineer to stamp that you're clean. It never goes away. And it's not just that it's a permanent mark on your record. It's the fact that people who buy sites have a issue with it's an uncertainty. We call it market resistance to detrimental factors. That's the new name for it in our business from the Bible. And it's a real matter. There's always a discount for contaminated land, no matter what. And it's generally based on the usage that you're going to encounter, which is residential being the highest impact, because the exposure is, if there is a problem, is longer. Now, I know it got a clean bill of health when they started this, but again, we're not talking about the conclusion, the conclusive determination of whether it's contaminated or not. What we're talking about is the perception that people carry on lands that were contaminated. That is real. It used to be called stigma, and it's generally a 20% discount in value. Now, we haven't considered that, but I think when somebody talks about the quality of one site versus another, so we look at it and say, so I can buy a clean piece of land in Bridgewater, never been used before except for farming, or I can buy a contaminated piece of land in Tuxedo. There's a big difference. And as far as you can see the sales we used, you know, the market for rental property is not, it's based on where people rent, where they have a need. And the hottest market is the Southwest Winnipeg quadrant. That's where people are building, around IKEA, around the old sugar beet factory, and in Waverly West. That's the hot market, and that's where the numbers are being generated. There's some redevelopments, Pembina Highway, two big ones. That's a hot market on the rapid transit. This, of course, is not on the rapid transit. And I bring that up because people who rent apartments generally have less or no cars. So rapid transit's an important feature. And that's why the ones that are springing up around it, and the assessor was saying about her sites, well, you know, Berwick's on the rapid transit route. Ballantrae are on the rapid transit route. So those are hotter commodities than those that are not, because your tenants take the bus generally. Now there are, of course, around this some very expensive condominiums, but the concept of that is not going to relate to the initial purchase of the land. So what we've looked at here is this was my work from another appraisal, and so we looked at. When I was doing some work for somebody else, I had done all this research myself, and the person who prepared this report cut and pasted it in it. And you can see this is a really fair representation. By the way, this was done not for tax appeal purposes. This was done for open market advice to people who were buying and selling land that I did. So you can see what the ranges were, where the parcels were, and they did such a wonderful job of cutting and pasting my work that they also cut and pasted the commentary on the subject site. Well, you'll have to disregard entirely page 4. We had some more sales on high density sales at the top of page 5. And again, you can see what I did with everything here is I broke it down to a cost per acre and a cost per unit. And the cost per unit is you know, as an example, look at page, I was telling you this earlier, page 5. The low for land is 596 an acre, the high is 5.3 million. Yet the low and the high on the density side is much, much tighter. And the means and the medians are tighter. And that is just tells you that if you're looking for a reliable indicator of value, look at the rate per permissible unit, and not. We tried very hard. Now I'm going back to page 2, and you'll note that our range there per unit was 12,000 to 39,000, but the one at 12,000 and the one at 14,000 were based on estimates at the time it was done, not what was actually approved. So probably disregard those in the range. It is higher than that. I put the low end at but I can say all this because I did the work myself. The low end is 23,600, and then the high end is 39,000, and that's where we're sitting at here. So let's just see. There's disregard page 6. This is for downtown. There's some write-ups on some of the properties on page 8, and this was clipped from another report. And I just had a talk with this particular person on what he did, and these are all a mess. But I think the pertinent information got down. I like this one on page 10. This is kind of a graph to put out where these sales all end up, and you can see fairly conclusively that the sales are tight in that $1 million range, essentially 1 to 1.2 million, and the workup on this was estimate was 996,000 per acre, which I don't disagree with because we're dealing with an inferior property due to the concept of the land, and that would be the discount applied. We just put it at the lower end of the range. Boy, I have to really look through this to understand this, but yeah, this should be where it fits in towards the lower end of the market on that basis. Now, when it's finished, I guess the value is going to be changed, and that will probably be in a few months. So I'm not entirely sure when completion is scheduled. I think it's mid 2025. So this assessment will not be in place very long. Okay, so I'm trying to point you towards something that makes that is a little bit clearer for our usage. That's all I got. RMU. Okay, well,
Mr. Neufeld, is there actually an actual final value anywhere on here?
Yeah, page 1, right in the middle.
Sorry, I was scrolling.
I'm just doing a test, a common sense test. Okay, well, the zoning density is 121 units, but I know it's been approved for more. And going to the highest end of the scale here, oh, that's right. Sorry, my math is right. I said 121 at 1.4 times 43,560 divided by 500 is 121. Okay, so that's our request for value. Call it $1 million an acre. There's no calculation here for you, is there? Oh.
No, that's why I was asking.
I got it. 1,400,000. And just
That's
for the
based
record,
on, sorry, Mr. Neufeld, that's based on 1.4 acres, right?
that is correct.
Thank
And just for the record, I don't disagree with the assessor's comparables 1 to 4, which are 1 million to 1.275 million per acre.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just ask if we can just, I don't think we don't need to recess. If we can just pause for 1 second. I just realized that my machine is about to die and I just need to get a cord. It'll take me 30 seconds. Okay, so I will be back momentarily. Everyone can just hold for a second. My apologies. My apologies again. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, was that the conclusion of your presentation? Mr. Neufeld? Was that the conclusion of your presentation?
Maybe no, because I'm going to put this in presentation rather than summation for this part. Just something I want to say is this work we presented you today is sloppy, even by our own standards. Totally my fault. I had something else that I was engrossed with. I could not get out of it. We concluded last night finally, and I'm free again. And I wish I could have reviewed these better. Any land that is sold for apartments, if you're having a zoning that is similar, you can then look at the rate per square foot. What we heard today was not always the same. In this case, we had the same. The information I presented to you came from appraisals I did, and we always concluded, not just for assessment purposes, a rate per acre between 1 and 1.2 million. I'm only suggesting it goes towards the lower end of that scale due to the impairment, and that indicates a 20% discount. I think reasonably 1 to 1.2 million for RMU zoned land. And again, I'm not changing my argument. It's just that what we're dealing with RMU is appropriate. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, sorry. So are you still at 1.4 or are you?
Yeah, I still am. I'm just
Okay.
saying to you that reasonably it's between 1 and 1.2, and we went to the lower end due to the registration on the site.
Okay, so but your value is 1.4 million based on $1 million an acre, 1.4.
That's
okay,
correct.
thank you. Okay, thank you. Ms. Doronova, do you have any questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Robson, any questions?
Just one. Did you say that the remediation of the land affected the value, or you're not
No,
taking that into account?
Well, the remediation was done, and there's a report from an engineer saying there's no contamination. What I'm saying though is in the concept in the practice of evaluating contaminated land, I'm going to use the word stigma never goes away. Once contaminated, it's always deemed to be questionable. And the big problem with it is banking. When you go to borrow money on a land, they'll want to see your environmentals, and they'll look at it and say, "Oh, you were once contaminated." What happens is you don't get the high ratio loan. Everything relates to money. So instead of a 70% loan, you might get a 60 or a 50 from a bank.
Right.
That's why the value.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Okay, and I think I have none either. So, Ms. Doronova, any summation?
Yes, so to summarize, would be that subject property is located on the corner of Tuxedo Avenue and Corridon Avenue, which is, in my opinion, far superior than my comparables 1 through 4. It's similar in terms of being location-wise with comparable 5, Tuxedo, Old Tuxedo. And considering that this is RMU, it's able to be developed at a higher density than my comparable 5, which was zoned RMFM. And given that it's RMU, there is a commercial component to the development, which I think makes even the subject in a better location than comparable 5 due to its RMU zoning and the commercial development that will coincide with that, as it's, I guess, experiences more traveled corner. And just looking at the area, it's very close in terms of proximity to Assiniboine Park, the zoo, and our leaf there. And that is, those, I guess, are, it would be our only Assiniboine Park, in a sense, our only zoo in the city. So that makes it a very attractive location. And considering that it does have bus route as a land influence, I think that the residents that may not have cars that would be, in a sense, living here eventually, that they would be serviced by the transit system. So to conclude, I don't think that the net rate per square foot of $39.87 is unreasonable. I think it's very reasonable considering comparable 5 and the time adjustment that would coincide with that comparable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, and as part of my summation, first I would like to address 139 Tuxedo. I've researched the sale many times. I've spoken to the directors of the Rady campus, and I've spoken to the purchaser. I know them all personally as well. Now, I don't want to say anything that it would be hearsay, but this is in the newspaper about it. This is the purchaser speaking and convincing the Rady Center. Grandchildren can easily go over to Bubby and Zaida's after school. Bubby and Zaida pick them up after school. It will think there'll be a real synergy between 139 Tuxedo and the Asper campus. It is essentially a part of the Asper campus, and it's not for anybody to use this as an arm's length transaction has got to prove it is one. Really, what's out there doesn't really help you come to that conclusion. You would need to see it, and I would never use this as a sale because it's because of the relationships. It was a closed or a bidding process on it, and surprise, a member of the charity got the bid. Don't know, again, prove it's one. Other than that, I don't have a problem with the rest of the assessors' comps. I think they're fair, they're reasonable. They show what the market is like in Winnipeg for multifamily, 1 to 1.2 million per acre. And I say, and they're all RMU, that no issue now with the density. I just think that the old Shell station go to the lower end of it. And again, I can keep apologizing for this mess. I'm very embarrassed, and I hope this doesn't impact what we have brought forward. Thank you for your patience. And by the way, I'm confirming the next one, so I'm out of here.
Okay, well, we got to put it onto the roll first. So
I know that. That's why I'm saying this now.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes 300 Tuxedo. So the final item on our docket this morning is 3025 Pembina Highway.
File number 24-4135, roll number 0309300895. Address is 3025 Pembina Highway, and owner is 100-19290 Manitoba Limited. Should I continue with the presentation, or since it's being confirmed?
If you can read the value onto the record, that would be helpful, please.
Sounds good. So the assessed value for roll year 2025, reference date April 1st, 2023, is $2,292,000.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
residential 2, taxable.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Neufeld, I understand you are requesting confirmation on this property?
Yeah, we think that the occupancy permits will be issued very shortly, and it's going to be reassessed as a complete project. So I think, you know, at the time we filed, we weren't sure of the dates. Now we think they're very close, not much point. I am allowed to make a comment on the assessor's presentation. That's $1 million an acre. Same as what we're looking for on the other one. Thank you. Please confirm.
Okay, thank you. I just want to check with my panel members to make sure they don't have any questions about this. Mr. Robson, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
None. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes all the items we had on today's docket. So I will declare the hearing to be adjourned. And I thank you both for your presentations this morning and your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks.